Hi guys, so today we're going to talk about graphing quadratic equations. We're going to solve them as well as finding the max or the min on our graphing calculators. We're going to do this for both a positive quadratic, which faces up and has a minimum, as well as a negative quadratic, which faces down and has a maximum, just because there's a slight difference when you are looking for that vertex. So first things first, we need to make sure that our equation is either equal to a y, an f of x, or g of x, or any one of those, or it's equal to 0. In this first one, we're not. We're equal to 16. But we can easily move over that 16, get it out of our way, and our new rewritten equation is 3x squared minus 8x minus 16 equals 0. Now we're able to plug it into our calculator. So if you open up your calculator, and then you hit your y equals, I've already plugged it in, and that's the only one that's selected, so when I hit graph, that's the graph of my equation. If your window does not look like this, you can very quickly hit zoom 6, and it'll get you to a standard window. However, we see standard window is not the best for this particular quadratic. If you see important information is kind of off of your graph, you can easily change the window by hitting window, and then I need to change my y minimum since I go below the screen. So let's just make it like negative 25. Make sure you use the negative button and not the minus. Sometimes if you have a syntax error or if something just graphs funny, double check that you use the negative when you need a negative and a minus when you needed a minus. So let's check out what that does for our graph. Beautiful, we see the whole thing. Now, let's solve it first. And to solve, that just means find your zeros. So if we hit second, trace, we're going to calculate our zeros. We do need to do this for each zero. So just pick a zero to start out with. I'm going to go with the left one first. When it asks you left bound, it's just saying, hey, show me something to the left of your 0. Right bound, so just hit your right arrow until you pass your 0 to the right. Doesn't matter how big that window is, so long as your 0 is in between it. And we see our zeros are negative 1.3 repeating, 0. We always know that y value is going to be 0, so when you're solving, all you need is that x value. So we see that's negative 4/3, or negative 1 1/3. And our other one, repeat the process, second, trace, go down to 0. Something to the left of my 0. Something to the right of my 0. And enter one more time, and I have my other 0 at 4. Now something you have to be careful about, if you aren't quite to the left and right of your 0, you might get a bound error or no sign change. When you do that, that's just telling you that you didn't quite find an area that's to the left and right. So just make sure that when you're looking at finding your zeros, that one of your numbers is negative. So here to the left we are negative. And then when we find our right bound, that we do cross over into the positive. That's a good indication that, yeah, you're going to be including that 0. Alright, now our minimum, because we see this does have a minimum value down here. Let's find our minimum, just our vertex. So if I go into that second trace menu, I do see a minimum. So same idea with the left bound and right bound. You want to make sure that you pass your minimum to the left, hit enter, pass your minimum to the right, hit enter one more time, and it gave us a minimum, not the prettiest decimals, but we'll live. So I'm just going to say that's about 1.3 and negative 21 1/3. Now for finding minimums, you also have to be careful, because if you calculate minimum but you're not really even around your 0, or you don't encompass your 0, it'll still give you an answer. It'll just find the minimum value between your left bound and your right bound. So you do have to make sure that your vertex that you're looking for is in between there. Now something that might be helpful for word problems, like, you catapult something and you want to find the time after a certain amount of seconds. Clearly this wouldn't follow that, but you can do second trace. If you do value, you can plug in any number for x and it'll tell you what the value is right there. You can also find that in your table, which you would do by second graph. And you can scroll over to see your x and y values. This table isn't as helpful, for instance, if you're asked how far something is after 3.5 seconds without having to change your table set, which usually isn't that useful. So let's take a look at our other equation, and we do see that it is already set equal to y. I do already have it plugged in. I'm just going to select it. So I've got my negative x squared plus 2x plus 1. If I hit graph, I see all of my major points are kind of within that what would have been my normal window. I can reset that normal window by just hitting zoom 6. So let's solve this one. Second trace, 0. I want to be to the left, which I see is negative, and I see a negative number. I want to be to the right. So I see 1, 0 is negative 0.41. My other 0, I've got to repeat my process, so second trace, 0. If you want to find your maximum as you go instead of finding both zeros first, that's fine. Particularly if you've got a big gap in between your zeros, it might be more useful just to kind of go with things as you find them on the graph. And I have another 0 at 2.41. Alright, now to find the maximum, I'm going to do second trace, and then instead of minimum, since it's not a minimum, I want to find the maximum. It's going to look for that highest y value. I'm going to go to the left of my maximum, go to the right of my maximum, and it's telling me that it is at 1, 2. If I asked you for the maximum value, that would just be our y value, of course. That would just be 2. So that is how we get our information off of our graphing calculator. I believe the directions in the homework for the zeros ask for something to the effect of, if it's not directly on a number, to talk about the consecutive integers that it falls in between. So for example, the negative 1 and 1/3 would fall between negative 2 and negative 1. So that's just what it's asking for. Hope this helps. Good luck on your homework, and I'll see you in class.